Welcome back, guys. It is May 3rd, 2023. Um, Tomorrow is Cinco de Cuatro, which, if you know that reference, you're a cool dude or lady, I guess. And so, what I want to talk today about is a bit of an autopsy of what we just went through. I remember dealing with a lot of people in the medical community that thought they understood the virus and hey, I'm a doctor, I did medical school, where's your training? And to their point, that's fair. I didn't have medical training. I had statistical training and public policy training. And so what was really important was, statistics are lies, damn lies, and statistics. And so, like, always kind of had a leg up on saying, hey, the data you're using doesn't tell the whole story. Which gets me to today's video. So, one of my friends from college, when coronavirus first came out, she sent me something that is very fringe, and I didn't believe it at the time. But about a year and a half later, it became obvious that it was correct. So let's recap. In 2020, November, uh, Trump lost the election, or however you want to call that. It's fine. I'm with you, however you want to call it. And then the rollout of the treatment, the preventative treatment, or the lessening of the symptom treatment began, however you want to remember that. Um, it was very bad. Anyways, in 2021, we were still dealing with uh, testing. Do we have the quick test? Do we have the nasal swabs? All this stuff was coming out. And as they continued to roll out the treatments that were required for a lot of people, you started seeing a lot of variants pop up. Now, I'm not saying that that's causation, just correlation at this point, at least correlation. One of the interesting things about the variants is that in 2020, we were told that the virus didn't mutate very often. And this was one of the strengths of it. Because it didn't mutate, we were able to study it longer and test things out. If it were constantly mutating, we were going to have a hard time pinning it down. It's a feature, not a bug. Anyway, so we start getting all these variants in 2021. Testing is an issue. Masking was a major issue. But there's one interesting thing that you would see is that even in countries like South Korea and Japan, where they had 99.4% compliancy with masking, they were still getting spikes. They were still seeing seasonal spikes of the virus. And did anyone ever ask why? If masks work, and again, we now know that they don't. Why were you seeing spikes with a society that is not only masking but social distancing, doing everything right? That the totalitarians in our country wanted us to do, they were doing right in the Far East. So why are they still getting spikes? Well, the interesting thing is we started seeing reports from health officials in 2021, especially, I remember when I first saw it, it was in Harris County, which is the Houston area. There was a Harris County, health official basically saying, we know people are getting sick, but we know they're not going to the hospital because the hospitals aren't overrun. It's like, well, hold on a minute. How do you know they're getting sick? Which is the obvious question you ask. How do you know that all these people are getting sick and yet they're not going to the hospital? And the answer, are you ready for this? We've been testing the sewage water. What? Yeah, so we are looking at parts per billion, and we're able to determine that the unspecified virus of unknown origin has a certain level in our sewage water. And by testing that, they're saying, oh, we can extrapolate that, 6% of the population has the virus right now, and they're not going into the hospitals. They're not overwhelming the hospitals. It's like, okay, hold up. So we've gone from not knowing anything about the virus to being able to test sticking a swab into our brain. That's hyperbole. That's not what happens. To we can determine en masse what populations, what the percentage of the population is that should have the virus. Like pretty lickety split. So that's pretty sus. But what's not sus is going back to my friend's earlier hypothesis that was sent to her or whatever. It was basically the virus is transmittable via bodily fluid, which seems obvious. The masks were there to stop you from being able to transfer spittle, because people do spit a little bit when they talk. Whether they know it or not, it comes out. We're talking about very small doses. And it was, the viral load, all that nonsense. So again, take it back to the Far East. They were all wearing masks, but they were still using public toilets. Now, you're saying, oh, well, toilets, how do you draw that conclusion? So I'm a child of the 80s, which means I grew up with the 90s, and I would see, ABC News, doing these, stories between, conjoined twins, and, eggs are bad for you, eggs are good for you, egg whites are bad for you. Oh, egg whites, they're not too bad. Get rid of the yolk. And then you find out the yolk's good. That type of journalism. And during that time, it taught me something very, very important. I remember one piece they had. It was a family, and they put something in the toilet, some dye or whatever. And then when you turn on the black light, you can see where the swirl of the toilet, spread the toilet water in the bathroom. And what was absolutely shocking is that this family had their toothbrushes right above the toilet. And so after a few days, them using their normal course of the day, the crew would go in there, turn off the lights and black light it, and the toothbrushes are covered in toilet water, thus simulating fecal matter just being sprayed out everywhere. And so let's jump ahead to 2020. That's what's happening. The concentration of people in New York, Tokyo, Seoul, wherever, they're using public bathrooms, urinate, flushes, it goes everywhere. You can't see it because it's so small. Any guy with a solid stream knows that when you pee too hard into a urinal, you get a little bit of backsplash. But even when you flush it, you're getting other people's fluids on you. And so you got to be very careful. So my household, you dang straight, we shut the toilet before we flush. It's just more hygienic, etc. But when it comes to the unknown virus of unknown origin, people aren't shutting the toilet in public spaces, or some toilets don't even have lids, and that just gets everywhere. And so, it's one of those things that is it seems very odd, but the moment you see it, the moment you realize it, obviously bodily fluids can transmit viruses. Duh. But, we don't want to start a panic where we say, you got to be careful not to sit on a toilet in San Francisco because you might catch, monkeypox or something. Because that scare also happened in the 80s, and I do kind of remember a little bit of that. But the public officials they just sweep it under the rug. this Harris County official said, "Oh yeah, we're totally testing wastewater. We know the sewage here has this amount of CV in it, and we're expecting a lot of people, but they're just not going to the hospitals." And so uh, it's one of those weird things that seem very obvious now, but you don't hear about it because no one wants you to know about it. No one really wants you to analyze, hey, if I go to a McDonald's, am I wiping near something that's bad? And it really makes you put a lot of faith in humanity, and you don't want the germaphobes to take over and dictate how cleanliness uh, needs to be applied to everything. And I get it. I used to be a germaphobe myself. I was one of the rare people that caught swine flu in Texas. It nearly killed me. Nearly. I dehydrated really, really bad, and I was alone because I was in college, and all my roommates were out of town. And if it weren't for my cousin coming to see me, I probably wouldn't have had the flus to do it. I also caught the norovirus back in the day. That dehydrated me really, really bad. And so I have a little bit of germophobia. But when coronavirus hit, can I say that word? I'd actually gotten over it because I was like, my immune system is max. Like, those things didn't kill me. It was pretty bad, but I'm not going to let something that is the sniffles keep me down. And so after a while, I kind of sought trying to get the virus just so I could see how it would react. And ironically, I had about a 48-hour fever. I had chills, and I shrugged it off. The rest of my family, they had some issues. Yeah, I say yeah. It was a cold for them, which is what the coronavirus says. But funny story. About a month later, Texas allergies started hitting. Cedars, spiked, and I was bedridden for almost a week. And I tell people to this day, Texas is more deadly than coronavirus, and that ain't no joke. If you're from Texas, you know. And so a lot of respiratory issues that happen in Texas, it's allergens. It's not coronavirus. And so if something's putting you on your ass, it's going to be natural. So if you like this and subscribe, I'd like you to share the message. Comment if you think I'm full of it. Comment if you think it's funny, sad, whatever. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again, guys, and you keep it sane, guys. Bye.